All you crazy cats out there, it is the Municipal Man of Mystery back for number 9 in our series on how to create beats for your Beat Buddy. If you've been following along, number 7 and 8, we're looking at how to create some of the common fills, drum fills, that you might want to use. And keep in mind that that was not intended to be comprehensive. There are millions of fills you could make. We just wanted to understand the principles that you can apply and create your own as you are building your skill set. We're working with MIDI in Logic Pro X. If you're using another sequencer or DAW, that's totally fine, whatever is working for you. And I'm hoping by this point you've got your workflow set up and things are starting to pick up for you and that snowball is building. In number 9, our focus is going to be on hi-hats. I actually had a request to look at this and it was on my list of things to do, and we are here now. So we are going to look at how to work with MIDI to create hi-hat sounds and follow rhythms. Nothing complicated. We're looking at some of the basics and we're going to start off very simply. Let's first talk about setup. If you're looking at the screen here and you're not quite sure what's going on, go back to number 7. That's where I explained how I set this up here. And you can go through the steps, but some of the basics, we have our editor here, which is our workspace. Then we have our aerial view, which shows what's going on in our project and our tracks. So you can call it the track view if you like. You will notice I have the automations activated, and that's opened up this space down here where our velocity sliders are going to appear. We're going to need those. And we're actually going to be using the swing slider over here, and we'll see what that has in store for us. Let's start with some very, very basic stuff. Baby steps, in fact. Let's listen to our first beat, and then we'll look at how to create the hi-hat sound for that beat. Like I said, baby steps. All right, let's generate a couple notes. Just to review, I'm going to use musical typing for this. So if I go here, I'll zoom that in there. Show musical typing will make this window appear. And this is where you can use your keyboard to generate a couple notes that you can use. So we just want something in the field here that we can move around. You can certainly copy from other sources if you like. So we're going to hit record. I've got a very short loop set up here, and I've got the loop feature working, and that just allows me to hit the space bar and it will go back to the beginning each time. And if you keep reviewing what you're doing, that improves the workflow, saves you some time and energy. Anyway, we've got a couple MIDI notes, and we're just going to start with the kick here. And I'll just put them in place. I'm not too worried about the feature of the kicks because it's not our focus. We just need them to keep time for us. Look at the count, 1, 2, 1, 2, and that's pretty basic. All right, now that we have our kick and our snare, we're going to add our hi-hat sounds. Simple way to generate some notes is just to hit Option, click, and drag. And we're going to find our hi-hat sound. Let's use that one. And we'll start with a closed hi-hat. To make this very simple 4/4 beat, I'm just going to start by placing notes on the beats like this. And that's as simple as you can possibly get. We also want the hi-hat to count the beats in between, which is the 1 and 2 and kind of thing. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to the hi-hat alone, because that's what we're focusing on. So you will notice that all of these 4 notes are running on the same velocity. So it can sound a little mechanical. If you're trying to emulate what drummers do and you want a more natural feel, you have to think about how drummers actually pound out the beat. The first note is going to be an accent, so we're going to ramp up the velocity on that a bit. We could even go to the maximum, which is 127. So now that mechanical dot 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 has turned into a dot 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 dot, and that's where it's emphasizing and accenting the first beat. Now I can do the same over here, and now we have the 4/4 time that we want. Dot 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 do, da, do. And to review how velocity changes the impact that the drummer would have on the part of the drum kit, let's see what happens when we really drop the velocity on those alternating parts of the bar. And that might be how your song is best represented, with that heavy accent on the first beat. And you go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And it really depends on what sound you're looking for, what best represents the music you're trying to make. In most cases, for a straight sort of driving pop beat, you'd be looking at something like this. Just so you know, the velocity level is 94 here. You could bring it down or up in that range, 80 to 100. It doesn't have to be right on the number. It just depends how you like it to feel. And there's nothing wrong with either of them. I could take all of these and run them down really low. And we've all heard these rhythms in different songs. For a pretty standard and driving 4/4 time, a pop beat, that's basically what you'd have. So if we put our kick and our snare back into place, and we'll use a different snare sound. Let's try it at a higher tempo and just see how that's going to work. If you remember from number 7 and 8, I had made some tempo variations here in this automation up top here. I'll let you go back and review that. This beat over here is 80, this is 120. Pretty simple, straightforward, 4/4 time kind of pop beat.
And now it's time for a drummer joke.
So the other night, we're in the middle of a song, and I yelled to the drummer, "Tom, hit the tom!" What does he do? He gets up and punches the guy sitting with Dick and Harry. I'm here till Thursday.
All right, for this next installment, let's channel our inner New Order. Give it a listen. All right, for those in the know, that is a double-timed hi-hat. So let's look at creating double-timed beats. I'm just going to borrow the notes from the simple beat we made earlier, and I'm going to use a higher tempo because double timing is a little more noticeable at higher tempos. So this is at 120 beats per minute. Let's lose the snare and the kick for now, and we're just going to focus on our hi-hats. So far we just have the 1 and 2 and simple beat. I eventually want to make a 4-bar loop here, so I'm going to extend that out. Let's take a look at how we're going to make this into a double-timed hi-hat. The first thing I'm going to do, just for simplicity's sake, is maximize out all of these notes here. Okay, and to double time it, guess what? We're going to double them. So what I want to do is to turn these 8th notes into 16th notes, which means in a 4-bar loop, I should have 16 hi-hat taps. There are faster ways to do this, but I'm demonstrating. Whoops, sorry, I didn't catch that copy there. So there's 8, and I'm going to just copy and paste the whole group of them right on the beat, 16. And there's our New Order drum machine. That sounds a little mechanical, and that's generally not how double timing works, although it may be just perfectly fine for the song that you want, that very sort of straight, staccato, double time sound. It's all good as long as it sounds good, right? So let's start messing around with the velocity a bit, and I'm going to try to make this sound a little more natural. Okay, so think about this. The drummer is playing. They're going left, right, left, right. Each hit will naturally be either accented or not, or they will be hitting one hand harder than the other, as is natural. And that's sort of what happens. So when you listen to a lot of electronic music that uses this double time type of pattern, there is an alternating velocity. Okay, and you can hear the difference between those two. And of course, if you lower the velocity on those a little too much, it starts to sound a little weird, but who the hell knows? Maybe that's the way your song goes. So now we've got our double-timed hi-hat in a very basic kind of pattern. Now, there are other variations you can do with a double-timed hi-hat. First thing I'm going to do is maximize them all out, and then, because I want them to all be the same, and I'm just going to drop this down, let's say to around 90 or so. And I'm just going to bring this one back up. And then we'll have an accent on the 1 and the 3 there, or the first and the third bar in this measure. And you'll hear those accents pop out of the pattern. And of course, I can do the same thing on the 2 and the 4, and that will again double the accented beats. And of course, these can be alternated. So doing an A-B, you can hear how that changes the feel. If I reduce the velocity just on those notes and scale them down, it'll fade and then come back up as it hits the accents. Or I can bring this down and just keep those alternating accents at the first and the third bar. Again, it really just depends how you want the song to go. What you want to do is just have the skill and the understanding of how that works using MIDI and working with your software to create the results that you are planning in your head. You know, you want things to sound the way that you want it to sound. Let's add a little more to this beat. Let's bring back some of the elements from the original beat we had. Okay, let's bring our kick and our snare back into the mix. Great, and I'm going to use, sorry. Just copy and paste those again. It's starting to sound like something. This is a little off topic, but I would like to add a little more complexity to this beat, just because we can see how to create a whole double time beat with a little bit of flair. So I'm going to add some grace notes and ghost notes to this snare sound. Take those two and really going to drop the velocity on them to about 10. Actually, I would like that second one to be a little more pronounced. So that's adding a little more color to what was a fairly straightforward beat. We can do a couple other things. I'm going to add a ghost note to this kick here and bring that velocity right down. Okay, let's take this opportunity to focus on how to add open hi-hat flares to a beat. Now, the open hi-hat is simply just taking a note and finding the open hi-hat. And what we need to know here is that the hi-hat note that follows it will stop it. So it depends how long you would like that open hi-hat to sound. So if I take this and I play it, okay, that's pretty short, but it might be what you want. It sounds pretty good. If I take this hi-hat note out, just for graphics' sake, I'm going to extend this over just to show you how long it's remaining open for. So you could extend that to let it ring out until it fades, or you can stop it short and have a nice staccato open hi-hat sound. Another thing we can do is to add an open hi-hat to where the snare hits. And that sort of creates a little bit of a crash in the middle of the beat. Oh, sorry, that's too short. Can't even hear it.